Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're talking about all the things we tell ourselves so that we don't have to do the things we don't want to do. And we're also examining what George Washington has to do with addiction. Excuses.
There, that should be better.
Yeah, you've got different glasses on this week that aren't spattered with paint.
Did you sort of missing them then?
Not really. You look like John Lennon this week.
I feel a bit Lennon-like, actually, yeah.
Yeah, with only a modicum of the talent.
Well, yes. Yeah, I wouldn't mind just having a little portion of his talent. Yeah, how are you anyway? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, how about you? How are you taking to isolation lockdown?
Well, we're sort of week 3 now, aren't we? Just starting week 3, which is...
You drove past me in your car the other day.
I did, yes. Well, I'd taken the opportunity to go out to the supermarket, down to Aldi's, to get a few bits and pieces.
I'm pleased to hear it was a critical journey and you weren't just out joyriding.
No, of course not. No, I wouldn't do that. But it was, I saw you walking along.
As long as I stay healthy, I'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've got your health, everything else is kind of secondary, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But don't you think, like every little cough and tickle, you think that's it? Definitely got coronavirus now.
Yeah, I do think that, especially in the night. If I wake up with a sort of cough, I think, that's it. I'll be dead by Tuesday. Yes. Anyway, never mind about those more topics. What do you want to talk about today?
Just small talk there, wasn't it? I wanted to talk about excuses.
Oh, excuses.
Yeah. We're good at those, aren't we?
Like the excuse that I had to cook up one night when Adam put his hand through the glass in the front door of the house when he was bringing a traffic cone in after we'd drunk too much in the pub. That sort of excuse. Is that what you mean?
That sort of excuse, yeah. Although I don't think we should use the phrase cooking up an excuse with the connotations that it can attach to the...
there's some druggy connotations
exactly. There. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, no, we all use excuses, but they're really prevalent in the addiction world and in the recovery world as well. So I wanted to look at those really just a little bit to explore them a little bit.
That sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, there's an old phrase, isn't there? It's better to offer no excuse at all than to offer a bad one.
You've always got a new phrase every week, haven't you? There's always a new phrase.
Hey, I take a professional attitude towards this podcasting business, Sam. I don't just wing it like the likes of you.
Yeah, say that again. Give me that phrase again.
It's better to offer no excuse at all than to offer a bad one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with it. It was George Washington said that initially. So if he said it, it's got to be right, isn't it?
Does he come down to group then?
He doesn't. I haven't seen the letters. He's anonymous, mate. He could have done. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, you wouldn't be able to tell me anyway, would you?
Of course I wouldn't. My lips are sealed on that one. Yeah. But I think news would probably get out if he turned up unannounced. There's another phrase that I quite like, or a little quote, and it was by Jordan Belfort. Now, Jordan Belfort, he was the inspiration behind The Wolf of Wall Street. So I don't know if you've ever watched that film, but it's
I haven't.
No, it's a good film, but
too popular.
Sorry,
too popular.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Doesn't fit your particular taste, does it? Right? If other people like it, you definitely won't. But he said, right? He said the only thing standing between you and your goal is the bullshit story that you keep telling yourself as to why you can't achieve it. I think there's a lot of that. There's certainly a lot of that going into recovery, and that you come up with reasons why you don't want to go into recovery and why you can't possibly do it. And it's too hard on this sort of thing. So I quite like that, even though that Jordan Belfort himself was a bit of a wrong, as it turns out, wasn't he? He's spent time in jail, was involved in sort of scams and all sorts. But I quite like the sentiment behind it. But I just going back a little bit to about excuses, about the one you had to make up with Adam. I remember one of my favourite stories was one that Paul told me, my brother. From his school days. It made me laugh at the time. It still makes me cackle a little bit now. But he was one of his friends had skipped school for the day. He'd played a bit of truant, and he came in the next day, and the teacher said, "Well, what happened to you?" And he said, "I wasn't very well, sir." He said, "Well, where's your note then? Where's you got to prove this?" And he said, "Well, no, my mum was just about to write a note, and she blacked out." Right? which made me laugh at the time. He said it was really funny, and the teacher was trying not to laugh. You could see that, but obviously that was, going back to the thing, it's better to offer no excuse than a bad one. I think that was quite a good one, and quite unfortunately, it's quite a tricky one to actually ascertain if it's true or not. But
that's true actually, because although it sounds completely implausible, there is always the outside chance that it was the truth.
Well, exactly. I think the kiddie in question was had a long list of those sort of excuses which weren't very good. But that, I think, was quite a good one. The teacher, as was trying not to laugh apparently, and my youngest daughter, who's a teacher, she has exactly the same thing sometimes, where you really shouldn't laugh, and but you try to hide it away. In fact, I remember I used to get the same thing sometimes when the children were young. I don't know if you experienced the same. I remember, like Emily, my eldest daughter, she had this habit, right? We'd be sitting at the table and she'd have her food in one of those little, those porringers, I think they're called, aren't they? Which are like thick-sided plates.
Yeah.
And she used to have her food. She's just learning to use a spoon, and she had this habit of flicking food sometimes, and it was really bad behaviour. But she used to flick it, and often she'd flick it into Helen, my ex-wife's, into her face, right? And that was really bad behaviour. She had no excuse for that, for behaving like that. But I really wanted to laugh, and I really couldn't. I used to have to go outside into the other room and laugh, and and then took the flak from my ex-wife later on as to what I was a terrible father for laughing and that sort of thing. Anyway, you've taken me off topic.
No, I haven't. No, you take yourself off topic there.
I did. Yeah, I did.
There might actually, now you're talking about your young children's eating habits, it's reminded me that when my daughter was very small, if we used to try and get her to eat something she didn't want to eat, she used to tell us that she didn't have to. We used to say, go on, you just need to try it. And she used to say, I've already tried it. And we say to her, where have you tried it? And she used to tell us she tried it at nursery. Even if it was something completely bizarre that she could never have tried at nursery. She'd say, oh, no, I've already tried that. Where have you tried that? Oh, I tried it at Toad Hall. Rubbish. So that was a kind of go-to stock excuse for not having to do something.
Exactly. See, even at a young age, we start to learn that excuses are a way of diverting attention away from the truth, and that carries on. And I think that certainly I want to go through a little bit in a minute, but there's a quote that I did when I was doing a little bit of research that I come up with, which I thought was particularly relevant to recovery. Okay, and this is by someone called Israel Moaivo, and he's a sort of he's a writer and a blogger, and he's Ghanaian, but he's a born again Christian. So I'm drawing some of my research is from a theological background. So I think this is particularly good. He said that success is not obtained overnight. It comes in installments. You get a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, until the whole package is given out. The day you procrastinate, you lose that day's success. And I think it's that it's very relevant with recovery, because when you go into recovery, we all want things instantly. We want this instant cure. We're not prepared to wait. And I think it's sort of a hangover from the days where, which is the reason we drift towards stronger drinks and stronger drugs, because we want a hit, we want it quick, and we want it now.
Do you think it's particularly different for addicts that desire to want things right now? Because my experience is that when people have difficulties with their emotional well-being or their mental health, when they've got to the point where they recognise actually something needs to happen now, they want it to change immediately. I think that's quite, if you've struggled for a long time and you've reached the point where you think, right, I want to stop struggling now, you want to stop struggling immediately.
Yeah, I'm sure that us addicts, we don't corner the market on that. That's for sure. I think it is. It's a human trait, which I think is common in a lot of areas, isn't it? We want we want an instant fix, we want an instant cure. But I think some of the reasons that people come up with why they're going to recovery in the first place are quite interesting to look at. And certainly, I used a lot of the excuses I'm going to go through in a minute, and they sort of gradually dissipated as my addiction got worse, really. But I mean, I always look for a reason as to why I didn't have an addiction problem. I think I talked about it before when I used to go to, when I was still drinking, I'd sort of get dragged along to some AA meetings by members of my family. And the only real benefit I got from that initially was that I looked for people that had worse problems than I did. Yeah. I used to, there were people that drank more than me, or I'd look for the stereotypical drunk, stereotypical addict, and if I had one less thing in common with him, then I definitely wasn't an alcoholic. You know what I mean? It was.
Can you give us an example of that? So, what sort of thing might you? What sort of ridiculous conclusion might you draw from someone who is almost identical to you in terms of their behaviour, but have one sort of differential that you sort of clung on to and said, "Oh, there you go. That proves that I'm not an addict."
I think that people used to say, "Well, I need to drink because I can't sleep without it."
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
And you say, "Well, that's all right. I can sleep without it. Therefore, I'm not an addict."
Exactly. It could be as flimsy as that.
Yeah, I mean, probably you'd be sleeping because you were flipping hammered all the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's strange because in fact, when I did, when you are in the grips of your addiction, you don't have a sleep pattern at all. It's you're either awake and drinking, or you've collapsed and fallen into a coma. So yeah, you don't have a sleep pattern at all, which is one of the joys of getting into recovery, getting all that back. It's lovely having your standard sort of 8 hours sleep now, which is fantastic and unaided by anything you put into your body. It's just natural sleep. But
actually, can I just ask you a question on that?
Go on.
Yeah, I know you don't like me throwing you off track. But it seemed very sort of appropriate in terms of the situation we all find ourselves in there. You're referencing there the importance in recovery of going back and finding structure in your life, right?
Yeah.
And, in the situation we're all in now, in this lockdown, that is a way that we can all get through this situation by maintaining structure. You as a recovering addict will understand the importance of maintaining structure, right?
Oh, good, totally, yeah.
Whereas if you have not had addiction problems, but you suddenly find yourself in this strange world now where you're having to stay in all the time, where you're probably having to work from home, where you might have kids around you and so on, one of the first things that's easiest to let go of is any sort of structure. But actually, it's one of the most beneficial and useful things to hold on to. If you can still get up at the same time, still go to bed at the same time, make sure you put some structure in your day. It's an absolute lifesaver.
Yeah, it is. And I think we're the Aspire to Be groups that we hold online every evening, we discuss this at quite some length because we've been used to, in the past, coming from an unstructured situation when our addiction's it's rife, into a place of recovery where we're having to rebuild a structure, and you can rebuild it as you feel fit at that time. Mm-hmm. But there's a general consensus as the right way to do it, and you're exactly right. And we discuss in the meetings in the evenings now as to, where did you go for your walk today? Yeah. What did you do? What book are you currently reading? What did you watch anything on TV? In a structured manner, and everyone has fallen into the same pattern, really, that we know how important it is. We knew how important it was for our recovery to take hold, and we know how important it is to get through where we are now. So, yeah, I get up pretty much the same time as I always do. Have a shower, have something to eat, and then crack on doing what I've got to do with the day. But I'll go out and have a walk every day, and maintain a sort of structure. And that's the only way that I think most of us can get through this without having mental health implications as well. Because obviously we can be very vulnerable with that, can't we?
Yeah, definitely. Have I successfully thrown you off track now?
Yeah, you have really. But I'm just referring back to my notes. I'm holding it just below camera, so you can't see where I am on this. And you can't really hear me tapping my pencil or pen, can you?
That's true, actually. I can't hear you tapping your pencil.
I know.
Which is one of the many benefits of not being in the same room as you.
It's brilliant, this social distance. I can get used to it.
We should continue it after it's all been lifted.
I think we're going to do that. In fact, we were talking about it yesterday on the group chat on the Zoom meeting that when this is finished, we can go back to having face-to-face meetings. We're still going to hold these online ones as well, because it still keeps us connected, and we can do more of them. So there's something you can take out of this situation, and it's positive. I'm looking forward to continue to do them, because they're quite good fun.
Mm.
They really are. Anyway, excuses.
You've got to be off track now, haven't you?
Yeah, you have. Yeah, but I'm going back to excuses. And again, excuses why people don't really want to address, or reasons they don't address their problems and think they haven't got an issue with it. No, I think one of the ones that I used to use all the time, that, as I said earlier on, gradually disappeared, was I don't drink in the mornings.
Oh, okay. God, the number of times I've heard that one.
Exactly. People say, I can't be an alcoholic because I don't drink in the morning. Now, that's... I've always thought, if you've got to have a set time where you're allowing yourself to drink, you've probably got a problem anyway. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, no, I don't drink until after 6 o'clock in the evening." Well, that's the issue is, you're probably white knuckling it until you get to that point, and then suddenly you're gonna go mad on it. So but I remember that. I remember taking the first drink ever in the morning, and I thought, do you know what? I think I have got a problem here now. I did have a drink in the morning, and then I just had another one to cover up the feeling of guilt that I had about taking the first one. So it did. So that excuse gradually went away, but I did use it initially.
I think that excuse, that is a really important one, certainly for anybody who's listening that doesn't recognise any particular addictive behaviour in themselves or in anybody else. That it's such a fallacy that I don't have a problem with drink because I don't drink in the morning. The fact that you drink 10 pints after 6 o'clock, or you're doing 2.5 bottles of wine every day, we'll ignore that. The fact is, because I don't drink before midday, I don't have a problem. I mean, it's just such a lot of nonsense. Unbelievable.
It is. I remember my key worker saying to me, bless her, because I said to her at that point as well, I don't really have a drink in the morning, so I'm probably in the wrong place here. I probably don't need help. And she said, do you not drink after midnight then? I said, oh, I drink till, perhaps 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So she said, well, that's the morning. So don't run away with the idea that, that morning is just after 9 o'clock or whatever. And she was just trying to gradually sort of nudge me towards not denying I had a problem, or to realising I did have an issue with it all. Yeah. And because I used to use the one also, which for a long time, I know we talked about this before, that I can't be an alcoholic because I go to work. All right? Yeah. And we talked about functioning alcoholism before, and I think a functioning alcoholic is still an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. But again, you use that as an excuse as to why you don't want to address your problems. That's all right.
Don't you think in a way being a functioning alcoholic is almost more dangerous?
Yeah, very much so. It's a massive excuse. It's a massive reason why you don't need to address your issues in your own head.
Yeah,
it's something which I'm functioning quite well, so it can't be an issue. It can't be a problem. Mm-hmm. But I know from all the people that come into groups that you can get away with being a functioning alcoholic for some time. But it won't last forever. As I say, you are still an alcoholic, and it will catch up with you, and you'll end up losing your job anyway. But it's a reason or an excuse that people use as to why they don't address their issues, and quite a big one. It comes up quite a lot. Another one that comes up quite a lot is that I can't be an addict, or I can't be an alcoholic because I don't drink every day.
Yeah, I've heard that one often. Again, usually you hear that from people who go out and get absolutely shedded all weekend on a terrible bender, completely unconscious from Friday to Monday, but don't think they've got an issue because there are days where they can leave it alone.
I'm quite interested in that, in the fact that you've mentioned it a couple of times now today, that you have people come in and have said exactly these things. I mean, do you find that people are coming to you to get some sort of validation on the fact that they're not an addict or haven't got an addiction problem, and there's some psychotherapeutic way that you can deal with them? Is that what they're looking for sometimes, do you think?
I think probably what happens more often is that, and I think we've spoken about this before, what happens more often is that people will come in presenting with an issue that is not directly related to alcoholism or drug use or whatever. And in the course of the conversation, they will talk about their drinking, for example. And I might say, oh, so do you drink a lot? I want to explore that. And they will immediately then become, in some respect, defensive and say, well, yeah, I do drink a lot, but I only drink a lot of weekends. I don't drink every day. Or if I say, well, do you think you might have a problem with alcohol? They will say, no, I haven't got a problem with alcohol because I don't drink in the mornings. So I think that tends to be the way that it comes up. And I always think, obviously if someone comes in, then they're not presenting as someone with an addiction problem that they want to address, then it isn't, I don't take them there. I don't say, well, hang on, we need to talk about your addiction, because they're not ready to address it. But I think if it comes up in conversation, I will sow a seed. And, I'll be trying to get them to think about for themselves whether this is an issue or not. I mean, obviously I can't know, can I? But if it appears as if it might be part of their story, then, I'll try and find some way of opening that box.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've referred quite a number of people, haven't you, over for me to have a word with them and to get them on the road to recovery in groups, etc. So it tends to work quite well. But I just wanted to, that's an interesting point, whether, people will look for, because we've had people come into groups in the past, and they said, well, I've tried to go to psychiatrists, try to get hypnosis for this problem, but, it really isn't working for me. And we say, well, no shit, hey?
Yeah,
it's you're looking for a shortcut to the answer, which doesn't have a shortcut too. You got to put some work in on this one. You can't just defer responsibility away. You got to do a little bit of work. But it's
I mean,
crack on.
If someone's still using or still drinking, I will say to them, that's the thing. You need to get on top of that before you start trying to explore the reasons why you got there in the first place.
Exactly.
So you need to see your GP. You might need to go into detox. You probably need some sort of peer support. Yes, of course, there is a place for psychotherapy, but it isn't the first thing you want to do. You need to stop drinking first.
Yeah, exactly. I think we talked about it in the past. I think it's vital that people start to get those things sorted out in the correct order.
Yeah.
And and as soon as they can address the issues behind it, as soon as they're sober, the better, really. But anyway, that's another issue. Something else that people use a lot, and there's a phrase that gets trotted out a lot, and you probably heard it all the time. He said, I can take it or leave it.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I know people say, I can take it or leave it. And I think we talked about this before. People have said that to me when I say, I'm an alcoholic, I can't have a drink. And I say, that's all right, I can take it or leave it. And I think, well, they're not helping me. What do you say that for? Thanks, mate. Yeah. Anyway, but I can take it or leave it. But it's normally, if I'm in a particularly pernicious mood, I would say to them, well, you try that, do it, okay, that's fair enough, you can take it or leave it. Have you tried doing it when you're in a situation when you normally have a drink, when you are on a stag do, or if you are at a wedding reception, and if you can take it or leave it, how do you deal with that then? But I don't, you let it go, don't you? I can't be bothered to get into those sort of rucks at my age.
I think most of the time when people say I can take it or leave it, what they mean is I can take it or leave it, but most of the time I take it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's strange because... talking about going into a situation where you would normally drink and then you don't, and finding that difficult. I remember really struggling. It happened on the odd occasion where Helen, my ex-wife, would say, we're doing it. Is it okay if you drive tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, if we're going out. So we'd be going out to a dinner dance or something like that. And she said, "Can you drive tonight?" And I think, oh no, it used to really annoy me.
You must have got a bit panicky, didn't you?
Oh my God! Yeah, I did. I mean, it was quite traumatic. I remember on at least one occasion we got there, and I ended up persuading her that it was probably best for me to drink and for her to drive anyway. But if I did get to the situation where I said, "Well, okay, I'm gonna drive tonight. I'm not gonna have a drink," and then I'd watch Helen struggle through one or maybe two glasses of wine, over a 4 or 5 hour period, I think, what the hell?
Yeah, she's really wasted your drinking time.
Exactly. And she was probably still under the limit to drive anyway. And that used to annoy the hell out of me.
Yeah, but in those sorts of situations, you wouldn't have looked at that as an indication of a problem, would you? Or would you?
Yeah, I would. I'd think that's that. I can root back my problems kind of over many, many years, can't I?
Yeah, but at the time, would you have seen that as a problem?
No.
No,
it's only in retrospect you look back and thought, well, that's probably not normal. A lot of people can go and quite happily to take their turn being the designated driver, but I clearly wasn't. And I wasn't. I used to get really moody and deliberately not enjoy the evening. I mean, it's there's no surprise. There's no surprise she ran away in the end, is it? Really, I treated her dreadfully. But
think back to our younger days, even though they're some distance away now. The idea of going out and not drinking, I mean, that would have been absolutely unthinkable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally.
If you weren't out Friday, Saturday, probably Sunday, and several nights in the week drinking, then questions would be asked, wouldn't they?
They would be asked, but even at that stage, I remember thinking if people said, "Oh, we'll meet up at 8 o'clock," I used to think that's way too late for me, And this is going back, I want to be well on the way by then, and so even then, when I was 18, 19, 20, I was still, looking back on it, I was on the road, mentally, I was already on the road by thinking, my God, what am I going to do between 7 and 8 o'clock? That's I want to be in the pub really as soon as it opens and start cracking on. 8 o'clock, 8:30. What the hell are these people thinking? But that was the way I thought.
Of course, these days the kids don't go out till about 11, do they? But then they've been drinking at home since about 6:30.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously the licensing laws are different. When you and I used to go out drinking, we knew at 11 o'clock the bell would ring and that was your lot. I mean, I remember the rushing of a few drinks in because, oh my God, it's the last orders is coming up and you'd order 2 or 3 at one go. And again, it's an indication that things weren't really on an even keel for me.
Mm.
But I think another excuse that comes up with, which again, it gradually drifted away as my addiction got worse, was, I can't be an alcoholic because I don't drink spirits.
Oh, right. Wow, that really, I mean, you really are kind of, excuse the pun, scraping the bottom of the barrel there, aren't you?
Yeah, you are.
Very poor indeed.
Yeah, but for some people think that if they don't, they call it top shelving it, don't they? If you go out for a drink, as long as you don't start top shelving it, then you've got your drinking under control. It doesn't matter if they're drinking 10 pints of beer and loads of wine and getting completely splattered on wine and everything else. But I don't drink spirits, so then I can't be an alcoholic. I mean, it is true, the discerning alcoholic does drift onto to vodka and that sort of thing in the end, because
surely that's just about convenience, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and it's speed as well.
Yeah,
it is. I mentioned it earlier on, didn't I? Want things instantly. Certainly in addiction, as it gets worse, you want that feeling instant. You can't wait around for the shakes to gradually subside or the feeling sick to suddenly subside. You want it straight away, and the only way you can do that is to drink quite a lot of spirits at one go, quite quickly.
But that part of the reason why that excuse is such a poor one is because, as you mentioned there, a lot of people who probably have got a problem with drink would be people who sit at home every night and do a couple of bottles of wine.
Yeah.
That you might not want to accept or acknowledge that is problem drinking. But if you've got into a habit of, you come in the evening, well, obviously not at the moment because you're in all day anyway, but if you come in the evening and you open a bottle of wine, you have a bottle of wine, and you open a second one, and you're doing that night after night after night, that is problem drinking.
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's, you don't have to be touching spirits to do that, do you?
No.
But it's surprising how many people say, the second bottle of wine is often opened, and at the weekends, the third or maybe even the fourth, gets opened, and that's dangerous drinking at that stage.
I suspect there's a lot of additional, a lot of extra drinking going on at the moment with people at home all the time.
Undeniably, I mean, there's even some of the unscrupulous shops have been putting. Takeaways on offer with special discounts for bulk buying. So yeah, there will be. I think we talked about it before, haven't we? When this is all over, I think yours and I business will certainly increase. People with mental health issues and people with drink and drug problems are going to be increasing, no doubt about that at all.
Yeah, my son was telling me when he went to the supermarket the other day, where the deli and the fresh fish counter is closed because obviously they're not manning those at the moment. Instead of those counters being open, they've just put pallets of booze.
No, have they?
Counters, yeah. So if you go looking at the deli at the fresh meat counter, you'll just be met with a wall of drink.
Pretty tricky for someone to start their recovery journey.
Yeah, you can't have a burger for your barbecue, but you can get a couple of crates of red wine instead.
Yeah, which is it's going to be problematic, isn't it? I'll use that word journey then. I'll use that word journey. And I know you don't like that word. I was trying to think of another one. I meant to put it in on the computer in the thesaurus to see what it came up with, and perhaps we could agree another term at some point, which obviously you don't. Well, if you're unhappy with it,
I'll have a look for you now. I've got a thesaurus right here.
All right, yeah. See if there's something that you're comfortable with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you carry on. I'll find it.
All right. Well, another
excursion, expedition, itinerary, jaunt, mission, odyssey. I quite like that one. Outing, peregrination. I don't even know that word. Progress, route, tour, transition, wandering. Yeah, wandering. I quite like.
Yeah, but that gives a completely wrong inflection upon what we're actually going on.
Well, don't blame me. You're the one that suggested getting the thesaurus.
It's your problem because you've got a problem with the word journey. I mean, I can't understand. I've got a problem with the group journey. They're awful, but the word itself is okay. But anyway, yeah. I'll just go back to another excuse then, or another reason that people don't want to give up drinking or don't want to acknowledge the problem, because they always say to me, and I've heard this a lot. I can't think of a life without drink. Life wouldn't. I'll never have fun again. My social life's going to stop, and but it comes up all the time, and it is a real barrier to people thinking, you know what, this is not doing me any good. I ought to get it sorted out. But the whole reason behind the Aspire to Be charity is having fun in recovery. Yeah. We have these meetings, and we have the excursions out, and we do various bits and pieces to try and have fun in recovery and show that there is life outside of that, and there's no doubt about it. And once you get your recovery under control, life is so much better, and you have much more fun, and you can remember the fun, and you're not making a fool out of yourself and embarrassing yourself. It's I don't want to be evangelical about recovery, but it's a great journey.
Well, I mean, you can make a fool out of yourself and embarrass yourself even without drink, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think part of the problem with that. Observation that people make about never having fun again is that forever thinking is always faulty, isn't it? If you think to yourself, if you think too far into the distance, then you're likely to think yourself into a difficult place, because you can't know what's going to happen next year or in 5 years or in 10 years. And if you think of yourself on day one of recovery as never being able to have a drink again and how awful that's going to be. Well, of course, on day one of recovery, that's going to feel tough, isn't it? But when you're on day 2000 of recovery and you've realised how much joy you can get from your life without drink, it then wouldn't seem like quite such a fanciful idea.
No, it isn't. And I think you're right. Those early days in recovery, you almost resent other people that are still carrying on drinking, and resent you having to go in and address your problem. And you sort of almost white knuckling out over the first few days. But then suddenly, things start to click into place, and you realise that there is a different world out there without drink and drugs, and a much better one. But it's strange how that comes up so often. People really can't envisage a life without constantly imbibing. But I'll tell you what, I want to finish on this one, I think, in a minute, but it's there's one that has been used only a couple of times, but each time I hear it, I think that's quite funny. People say, I don't really have a problem, but if I do stop or I cut down, people will think I do.
Oh, my God.
I know, so they're worrying about what other people think. That if they do start to engage in meetings or to talk about this issue, then they've definitely got one, or other people are going to think that they've got one.
That is, well, you really, anybody saying that has really tied themselves in knots, haven't they? I mean, that is that's quite an elaborate excuse.
It is an elaborate one, but that's why I left it till last, because I thought that you've almost got to think about that to come up with that, haven't you? But I've heard it on more than one occasion. So it's. I hope it doesn't end up doing the rounds, but it doesn't go viral.
That feels like an excuse that you would trot out when all other excuses have been exhausted.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's almost the subtext to that is, I know I've got a problem, but I can't admit I've got a problem because then everybody will know I've got a problem.
Yes, exactly.
And actually, in a funny sort of way, it's not that unusual for an addict to think like that, because the suggestion there is that what everybody else thinks is more important than what you think.
Yeah, it is in line with addicts' thinking, but I think it takes a little while. It's something which I haven't heard very often. But I'm sure I will hear it again at some point in the future. I quite like it. I think it's a great one. Someone's taken a little bit of time to think about that. But you do find it, when people. I was always, when I first went into recovery, I just told everyone. I didn't think there was any point in hiding it. Everyone knew, and I sort of got a nice backup from that. People were right behind me.
There's also you're relieving a lot of anxiety and pressure from yourself, aren't you, when you tell everyone?
Yeah, you are. I mean, I don't. We get. And again, it happens quite a lot. Of people come into groups and they won't tell anyone because, again, they don't want other people to know. And I can understand to a certain extent. I don't want their work to know, for example. But you tend to find if you aren't being honest and you aren't being honest with everyone, it does come back to haunt you, and it will. You will lapse. You will get into trouble because you're going to get into scrapes with people around you that don't know you've got an issue. And therefore are not being careful around you, or they're not being supportive, and so it can be really tricky. So I'm always a big advocate of just tell everyone. People will be understanding and will help you out. But as soon as you try and keep it quiet in some areas, A, it leaves a door back to your old behaviour anyway. Yeah. And B, it's probably going to come out at some point, especially if you start to relapse on a regular basis, which often happens if you're not honest with everyone.
Yeah, including yourself.
Including yourself, which is the big one, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh.
But that's my list of excuses, etc. I could have thought of loads more. This could have gone on for a long time, but I thought I'd pick out a few, the most popular ones, and that last one, which I thought was the cleverest one.
Yeah, it certainly does take some thinking about that one.
Yeah.
You've got to be working hard at your excuses to come up with one like that.
Yeah. You've got to have a clear mind. You've got to have a moment of sobriety to wake it up.
You'd have to sober up for a day, wouldn't you, to think that one up?
You would, yeah. But anyway, I've run out of excuses.
Right. Well, what are you going to go and do now then?
I'm probably going to have a top up my coffee.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go for my walk.
Yeah.
In fact, I went out for a walk yesterday. I got a little bit lost, really. I ended up going around for quite a long time because you're not really supposed to go out for more than an hour, are you? It's and so I was about 15 minutes over my allotted time.
Oh, well, you have to go for 45 minutes today then, and you'll be back.
I think so. I've got to redress the balance, otherwise I'd feel guilty. But yeah, and I should go out, and the sun is shining outside there. It looks quite inviting. Yeah. So I should go out and have a little walk, probably up to the heath, round the heath and back.
Lovely. I'm going to sand some garden furniture later.
You're going to stain it?
No, I'm going to sand it first.
Oh, sand it first, right? Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, a lot of these jobs are being done, aren't they, by people that have been putting them off for way too long.
Yeah, everyone's learning how to make bread, which is why you can't get any flour in the shops now.
Yeah, I haven't gone down that route, certainly.
You never have to make any bread, do you? Because I always give it to you.
I think it's about time you did some more for me then, in that case then, and I can walk around. Within an hour, I can get to yours and back. Yeah,
I will make you some later in the week. I'm making some for the paramedics this week.
Are you? Oh, good man.
Yeah, I thought I'll make them a little sort of doughy gift because I don't think they get much chance for much of a break, do they? So a bit of toast, no, miss.
Where are you going to drop that off to them then, or where are you going to deliver that?
I know a paramedic, so
right. Okay.
I've got an in.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if I come round to pick up some bread for you, you'd have to leave it on the doorstep, and I'd have to I'd use one of those robotic arms, those grabber things. A lot of the people that the people that go around picking litter off the streets, I could drag it, I could pick it up and then run away, so I don't get infected by anything around your way.
I don't think you have to run away. I think just walking calmly up to the door and picking it up would be fine.
I can be figuratively running. Don't you worry about that.
Well, I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, I hope
stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, and you. You take it easy, won't you?
See you next week.
Laters.
Bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can email us to let us know what you think of the show and with any questions that you may have. And finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week. All this time she was standing there, she never took her eyes off me. She saw the marks on my shoulder, it wasn't me. Heard the words that I told her, it wasn't me. Heard the scream getting louder, it wasn't me. She stayed until it was over, it wasn't me.